Hey everyone, welcome to part 21 of this Dark Urge Tactician mode guide for Baldur's Gate 3. We just finished up in the Gauntlet of Shar, and the rest of this video is all about how we complete Act 2. We're going to go all the way through the Moonrise Towers, everything we have to do there, as well as go down into the Mindflayer Colony, and we're going to beat the boss, and then go all the way into the beginning of Act 3. So it's a big episode. I'm really glad that you're here for it. Let's start by going over toward the camp. We're going to change up our party a little bit. First off, what we want to do is to add Karlach to our team. We're going to also remove Shadowheart from the team at the same time, and then we're going to go right across from Karlach and we're going to grab Will. We're going to add him to the team, and we're going to be removing Gale. So once that's done, then we can head back over to the campsite. We're going to choose to end the day, and that will trigger a cutscene between Astarion and Raphael. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip through most of this cutscene because it's almost all Raphael talking to us, and I'm going to skip to the point when we begin to talk to Astarion. You're quiet. It's unsettling.
It's a lot to take in. What do you think I should do?
There's a way to become a living vampire. That must mean a lot to you.
The idea definitely has appeal. I could get rid of the worm in my head and still walk in the sun. I'd finally be free of the hunger. And if I'm the key to this deal of Cazador's, perhaps I can turn this to my advantage. I need to take the fight to him. And I need you to help me.
Of course I'll help. We'll hunt him down and kill him.
Thank you.
Now let's choose to go to bed. We're going to take a long rest, and we'll use some camp supplies in order to get all of our health and spell slots back. After that long rest, we're going to choose to fast travel over to the Moonrise Towers waypoint. That will allow us to go straight into the Moonrise Towers. We're going to go all the way up and fight Ketheric now. So starting off from the waypoint, you want to start by heading directly toward the south. Watch where you're stepping though, because there are some glowing puddles on the ground. If you step in them, then you will take some damage. So let's go wide around them and then continue south all the way into the Moonrise Towers. There are no more enemies here because we cleared them out earlier, but if you want to check out a unique encounter, you can go down into the prison where we rescued Minthara, because there's some undead enemies down there now that you can only fight at this point. I want to talk to Quartermaster Talli and look at what she has available. We want to grab some Arrow of Fires as well as her supply packs that she's got. Also, check to see if she has any Arrows of Dragon Slaying. She can sometimes have that, and you'll definitely want to pick that up. We'll be farming her a little bit more later on just to make sure that we can get some of those arrows. But for now, let's move on and go ahead and talk to Jaheira to add her to our party.
As long as we hold this floor, the tower is ours. I'll stay here. Ensure no one comes up or down without a scimitar welcome. You're close now. A final audience with Ketheric Thorm awaits.
I detect a hint of envy. Perhaps you'd like to be there for that finale.
Ha! Keen eye. I suppose I could be persuaded.
Then consider yourself persuaded.
Fair enough. The time has come. Ketheric will taste of death at last.
Jaheira joins the party, and now we actually have 5 controllable characters, which is going to make the upcoming fight easier for us. Let's go all the way up the stairs. We want to get to the very top floor, and then we'll turn over toward the right-hand side, and that will take us down to a little hallway where there's a big rug. When you hit the rug, turn toward the left, and then you'll want to stop just before going through this ornate door. The game will autosave at this point, and then you want to break the Dark Urge and Jaheira away from the rest of the group so that they are the ones to trigger the cutscene with the other 3 characters left behind inside the towers. So with all that done, we're good to go. Let's go ahead and go through the ornate door and trigger a cutscene.
What have you done? What have you done to me?
Now, if you go through his room like we did earlier, you can actually have a persuasion check to try to talk him into being good and redeeming himself, but we don't want to do that. That actually makes a later fight a little bit more difficult for us. So instead we'll say, "You're mortal again, Thorm. I've come to finish you."
Impossible.
Now we just have a long cutscene with no more dialogue options, so I'll skip it until when the fight begins. Alright, looks like we get a pretty good initiative roll here, and Jaheira actually gets to go first. So what I want to do is to use some of her very powerful magic. She's got a level 4 spell called Ice Storm that has a very large area of effect. We can aim it and try to hit as many of the enemies on the left side as possible, and that's going to do a lot of damage. It can actually kill some enemies outright. I got 1 kill off of that, and some that are severely injured. And then what I want to do is to have her run around the corner. A lot of these enemies attack with only the line of sight, so if you can get them out of the way, then they won't be able to hurt you at all. The enemy here will try to run away but falls on the ice, and that's back to the Dark Urge's turn. I'm going to take a pause and actually go back over to Astarion. He's going to crouch with everyone, and then we're going to hide our way and sneak all the way up to the top here, staying out of the enemy's line of sight. When we get up toward the top of the stairs, I'm going to break out all the party members from each other, so we're all being individuals here, and then we're going to take Astarion over toward the left-hand side. Astarion is going to man the left side, and then I'm going to have Will and Karlach go over toward the right side to fight those enemies. This is actually a pretty easy fight if you follow this strategy. So let's start by going over here. We can attack with a sneak attack while we're outside of combat, and we're going to hit this Necromite and do a lot of damage to him. Then, because we have the Dread Ambusher ability from our Gloomstalker subclass, we're able to follow that up with another powerful attack only on the first round of combat here, but it will be enough to take out this enemy no problem. I can't do another sneak attack range because it's still technically the same turn in combat, but I can use another range attack following that up with an automatic offhand attack, and it's going to do quite a bit of damage to this Necromite. It breaks through his armor of Agathis, and now he's eligible to be killed on the next turn because I can do enough damage. Once again, gonna hide around the corner so the enemy can't see me. Now let's switch it over to Will. He's gonna go over toward the right hand side, the opposite side that Astarion went to, and he's going to get into position so that he can use his Eldritch Blast. If I split up the damage between the two enemies here, I'm able to push them both away, and then that will give me a little bit of extra room. So let's target this enemy, and then the one next to him. It'll push them both away, and then that will also bring him into combat. Now you probably should bring him over toward the side and get him out of there if possible, but instead I'm just going to move it over to Karlach, and then she's going to go the same direction that Will went, over toward the right side. We're going to get her just outside of the enemy's field of view, and then she's going to start off by throwing one of the weapons over toward an enemy that we can see. So let's start by tossing one right over to this enemy. We'll make sure that the path isn't interrupted, and when we get a good chance to hit, let's go ahead and throw that. It'll do lots of damage, bringing us also into combat. We'll use a frenzy just so that we can use an enraged throw, and now we have the ability to throw a couple more times in this fight. So we'll use an enraged throw, toss it over at this enemy that we hit before. That'll be enough to take him down, and then we have another one of our ranged throws. So let's go ahead and take that throw, and we're going to attack just another enemy over here. Unfortunately, that was a critical miss. Nothing I can do about that, so I'm just going to run her over outside the line of sight, and then I'm going to pass it back over to the Dark Urge so that he can take his turn. I see that there's a couple enemies who are already injured a little bit, so let's just use our sneak attack range to do some damage against this Necromite, and then I will not only be able to kill him, but also turn invisible. I can now hide in plain sight. We'll just run around a little bit without using another attack because that would break the invisibility. So we'll just tuck him over here, and then we're going to turn it over to General Thorm, who won't do anything, but Dame Aelin will. She's going to fly over and start attacking some of the enemies over here. And then she can also cast Moonbeam, so anything that comes close to her will also take some damage. The enemies over here like to attack with Reach from Beyond. This one did hit Will, but I can counter it with Hellish Rebuke, which is a very powerful attack that can just straight up kill one of these guys and also grant us Dark One's blessing. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and turn it back on over to Will. He's going to be able to run forward a little bit and get into a better position with the enemy, and then I'll be able to end his turn without doing any further actions. Let's move Jaheira up, and then I'm going to use Call Lightning. It's something that you can use once, and then you can also repeat it in subsequent turns for additional damage. So I'll attack Sustera. It's just another pretty strong enemy in this group. What's interesting is that if Jaheira dies in this fight, you actually get an inspiration point for the Dark Urge for having Jaheira meet an early retirement. But I do want to keep her alive, so that's why I'm kind of keeping her away from combat and letting Dame Aelin go right up into the enemy's face and try to absorb as much damage as possible. Well, now it's going to be the Dark Urge's turn. We'll just move him forward a little bit so that he can use one of his sneak attack ranges. We'll attack Sustera and try to focus him down. I get pretty lucky here where I get both a critical hit for the sneak attack range as well as the offhand ranged as a follow-up. Well, we're doing pretty well. The enemy doesn't have a whole lot more on their side, and we're still doing really well with all of our health. Let's go around the corner with the Astarion. We're going to use our Cunning Action Hide just to stay invisible to the enemy while we get close to them, and then we're going to use our Sneak Attack range in order to hurt the enemy, and then we'll just be able to sneak back around the corner outside of their line of sight. With the Astarion safely tucked around the corner, then we're going to go back over to Karlach. She has really good movement speed because she has momentum thanks to the helmet that she's wearing. So let's bring her up over by where Will and the Dark Urge are. And if I move her just a little bit more to the right here, I can get a good angle on the enemy up on the stairs, and I'll be able to hit him.
Good idea.
Her enraged throw not only knocked him down, but brought him down to very low health. What I want to do is try to hit Ketheric up on the top there with another one of my throws. So let's go ahead and do that. Unfortunately, it was a miss, so instead I'm just going to throw another weapon over at the enemy down on the ground, and that will be enough to pick up the kill here. Just make sure that you aim carefully so that the path is not interrupted. It's kind of a close quarters situation with some of those pillars and everything. So now what I want to do is to throw another item over toward Ketheric, but this time I'm going to throw something special. In my inventory, I've got some caustic bulbs. When you throw these, it will cause a puddle of acid to appear, and if you hit an enemy with it, there's a good chance that you'll be lowering their armor class, making them a lot easier to hit. So I did that not so much so that I could do some damage to him, I just wanted to make it a lot easier to hit him. You can see that if Ketheric gets within range of one of your characters, he can absolutely annihilate them. He took out Dame Aelin, however, she is able to resurrect herself, which is pretty good for me. Now using Will, I'm going to have Eldritch Blast come over and hit the Necromite, as well as try to hit Ketheric. I do pick up the kill on that Necromite, however, I miss Ketheric. A little bit unfortunate, but there's nothing I can really do about it now. Let's tuck him back a little bit, and now we're going to go back over to Jaheira, who will be able to use her Call Lightning again to do some good damage against Ketheric. Now he is going to be very close to Dame Aelin most likely if she's the one furthest up, so just be careful about where you aim it. You want to hit him instead of hit both of them. And that's going to do it basically for the strategy for this fight. In later turns with Jaheira, I'll just use Call Lightning once again to attack him, and then I'll also be using lots of throwing with Karlach. I'll be using sneak attacks with the Dark Urge and with Astarion, and finally with Will, I'll just try to hit him with some Eldritch Blasts, and Dame Aelin will do her part by keeping up the damage against him as well, and giving him something to attack. So this fight won't take too much longer, just another minute or two, and we'll be able to move on from here. You don't have to get Ketheric all the way down in health, you just have to lower him beyond a certain threshold, and then he will automatically flee from battle, cueing a cutscene, and then you'll be able to take control of your characters after that.
On the hunt.
This is my happy place. Easy as.
Here comes the final attack that will bring Ketheric's health below the threshold needed to initiate the cutscene. There's no dialogue options that are necessary for this whole thing, so I'm just going to skip to the end of it where we take control of our characters once again. Alright, so starting off, we're going to group our party members back up together, and then using Karlach, we're going to go around the battlefield and pick up all the weapons that we have thrown around here. Also, make sure that you loot the bone key off of Sistera, and then we're going to then go around, collect everything, and then there's going to be a treasure chest up at the top of this area. That's where we use the bone key in order to get a new ring, which is actually pretty good. So let's skip to that point. Since I threw that caustic bulb on the ground, I want to be careful not to step in that, so I'll be sure to jump over that, and then using that bone key, I can unlock the heavy chest at the top to grab the Ring of Exalted Marrow, allowing me to use Exhort the Risen and Ghoulish Touch. Exhort the Risen is basically just the command spell that works on undead. In fact, it can even work on the final boss of Act 2, so a very powerful item indeed. Now we're going to go down by where Jaheira is, but we're not going to talk to her just yet. Instead, what we want to do is head back to camp because we want to change up our party once again. So now that we're back at camp, we want to make sure that our party is very well aligned for the rest of this chapter because we're not going to be able to go back to camp once we go down inside the Mindflayer Colony. The first order of business is to add Lae'zel to the team, and we got rid of Astarion. Now we want to run over by where Gale is. You'll probably encounter Thaniel on the way, who will give you an automatic cutscene. There's no dialogue option here, so I'm just going to skip it. Now let's keep running over toward the right past Withers. We're going to add Gale to the party and take off Will. It looks like Lae'zel is ready to level up, but we're not going to level her up right now. Instead, we're going to bring her over to Withers because we want to respec her. We're going to make her a little bit different than she is right now, and this just gives us a more tactical advantage going into the next big fight. So let's go talk to Withers, and we're going to choose the option, can you help me change my class for 100 gold? What we want to do is stay within the fighter class right now. We went with the champion route before, but we actually want to turn her into a battle master with maneuvers that will help her out. So as a fighter, we're going to stick with the great weapon fighting style. And as for the ability points, we'll have Strength 17, Dexterity 15, Constitution 16, Intelligence 8, Wisdom 8, and Charisma 8. Our +2 bonus is for Strength, and our +1 bonus is for Constitution. As for our skill proficiencies, I'm choosing Acrobatics as well as Perception. That just helps me out the most, I feel. And we can keep her name the same as Lae'zel. Now we're actually going to go through the level up process, and I'll show you the selections that you'll want to make. Starting off with a level 2 fighter, there's not a lot that we have to choose here. We just get some increased health as well as action surge, which will definitely be handy going forward. Now we're moving on to a level 3 fighter. Here we get a specialization and some more health. Our subclass is going to be Battlemaster. This gives us 3 passives that we can choose from. I'm going to choose Disarming Strike. This is very powerful and very useful, especially for tougher enemies who have a weapon that they're holding. I'm also going to choose Precision Attack so that we can spend a superiority dice to add it to the result of an attack roll, making it more likely to hit. And also Riposte. When a hostile creature misses you with a melee attack, you can spend a superiority dice to attack them back. So that's the important stuff for this level. Now let's move on to level 4. This is where we get our first feat, and we're going to choose Savage Attacker. When making melee weapon attacks, you roll your damage dice twice and use the highest result. Alright, so let's lock that one in, and then we're going to move on to Fighter level 5. At this point, we get our extra attack, which is really nice for making sure that we're doling out as much damage every time, and then we also get Misty Step to increase our maneuverability in battle. At Fighter level 6, we gain a new feat. I'm going to choose Great Weapon Master. It has a feature that we can toggle on or off, and that is for the expense of a little bit less accuracy, we gain a lot more damage. But also, when we land a critical hit or kill an enemy, we can also make another attack. So that's very good for us. Alright, now we're Fighter level 7, we get another superiority dice and 2 more passive maneuvers. There are many good choices. I'm going to go with Commander Strike as well as Evasive Footwork. Let's lock those choices in, and then we're going to go on to our final level. This is Fighter level 8. We get another new feat, and this time we're going to keep it simple, sticking with ability improvement. I just want to throw a couple more points into strength just to try to get that up to 19, and that'll really help us out. So let's go ahead and lock that one in, and then we're all done with all of our level ups. Now we just have to go through the equipment, but I'm going to do it really quick just to show you overall what I'm giving people. So Lae'zel has the Grimskull Helm, the Cloak of Protection, the Disintegrating Nightwalkers, the Adamantine Splint Armor. For the gloves, she gets the Gloves of the Growling Underdog, the Shifting Corpus Ring, and the Aberration Hunter's Amulet. For the weapon, we have the Soulbreaker Greatsword, and her ranged weapon is the Titan String Bow. Now let's look at Gale's equipment. He has the Cold Brim Hat, the Drow-studded leather armor, Boots of Stormy Clamor. For the ring, I gave him the Ring of Exalted Marrow, the Psychic Spark. For his weapons, the Spell Sparkler, as well as dual-wielding the Staff of Arcane Blessing, and the ranged weapon is the Nair Misser, giving us another magic missile use. As for Karlach, she has the Haste Helm, the Adamantine Scale Mail, the Boots of Genial Striding, the Gloves of Uninhibited Kushigo, the Caustic Band, as well as the Ring of Flinging. For her weapons, she's going to have the Blood of Lathander. This is very important to equip on her, as well as the Absolute's Protector, or really any shield that you have available to you. And the ranged weapon is going to be Herald. So once you finish all of your level ups and all of your equipment stuff, then we're going to head on out of here. We're going to return to where we were in the Moonrise Towers, right outside of where Jaheira is, and we'll be able to talk to her, and then we'll be able to travel down into the Mindflayer Colony below. So we're just going to run over to Jaheira, and we're going to initiate a conversation with her. Ultimately, what we want to do is to not take her on our team, but give her the option that we want her on the team.
The General will call that a tactical retreat, I'm sure. But you have him on the run. That thing he summoned was Illithid. Follow it below and find him, before he has a chance to subdue the Night Song again.
Don't you want to see how this ends?
I certainly do.
Join me then.
You have numbers enough already, I think. You'll want a small force, if you are to finish this quickly.
I'll be back.
Don't rush on my account.
Now all that's left is to head over to the big hole in the ground called the Hollow Tower. You'll get a save point right here automatically, and it will warn you before jumping down in there, because once you go down, you can't return back to camp and you can't do any long rests. So you want to make sure that you are all ready before you leap down. There's a little cutscene that plays with no dialogue options, so I'm just going to skip it and get to the part where we can control ourselves again. Now that we're in the Mindflayer Colony, let's run straight ahead toward the east. There's going to be a membrane ahead of us. We just have to attack it with some sort of weapon, and it will break apart, allowing us to go through. We'll keep running forward toward the southeast. When you get to the intersection ahead of you, turn over toward the left side. Keep running as you go toward the green lit torch, and then turn left again. That will take you to another big doorway here. We're going to open up the flesh rot door and go inside. Now you can see that there's a quest marker up ahead of us, so we're going to run in that general direction, and that will take us over by where Mizora is waiting for us inside one of the chambers here. So let's run over here, but before we talk to her in the pod on the left, we can look around here. There's going to be a brine pool just over to the right hand side, and we want to interact with that so that we can get another one of the Mindflayer parasite specimens. You have to pass the perception check to get it, and it will automatically add it into your inventory. There's nothing else that you have to do from this point. So now what we're going to do is to actually use those Mindflayer parasite specimens to upgrade our Illithid powers on Gale. We already have a lot of them, but now we can get a lot more. We want to unlock as many Illithid powers as possible on Gale because it pairs very well with the Cull the Weak Illithid power that we've already unlocked. Basically how it works is if we can get an enemy's health to be below the number of Illithid powers that we've unlocked, then that enemy will automatically die and also injure other enemies around them. So when we're done upgrading all of Gale's Illithid powers here, he should have 16, which means that any enemy that Gale attacks who has 16 or less health by the end of that attack will instantly die. The strategy going forward is that we're going to use our other party members to try to spread the damage out across different enemies, and then they will try to get them to around 16, and then Gale can magic missile around and can take out multiple enemies on his turn. We don't have to reduce the number to 0, we just have to get it to below 16. Make sure that you grab the Perilous Stakes Illithid power. We're going to be using this in the upcoming boss fight, and it will make things significantly easier for us. So we're now all done getting all of the 16 Illithid powers in this area. We still have some more that get unlocked a little bit later on, but we do have one tadpole remaining. We're just going to hold on to that for right now. So now that we're done, we're going to go out of here and we're going to talk to the pod where Mizora is being held, and then we're going to unlock her, making a little bit more progress toward freeing Will from his pact.
By Grazit's cock, it's about time you came.
Mizora, you are the devil you sent Will to rescue?
Thought you'd have figured it out by now. Now, enough sniffing around and get me out of this thing.
Do it, and I'll let Will off his leash. A devil always keeps her promises.
Your eyes turn to the control panel next to the pod. It has 2 devices marked with Illithid symbols. The controls are open to your tadpole's command, to your authority.
Examine the device on the right.
The button symbol means nothing to you.
It doesn't matter that you fail that, the right one is still the correct choice, so connect your mind to the device on the right and activate it.
Good work. I'd give you a gold star, but I'm fresh out. As for the pact, Clause Z, Section 13. If the Soulbinder consents to separation, she will release the Soul Bearer from all obligation within 6 months.
You're a disgusting little shit. You know that, Mizora.
Ignorant thing. It's always the terms and conditions that get you.
Shrug, 6 months isn't that long of a wait.
Right. I'm out of here. I need a long bath. I'll leave you to your very serious business. But don't you fret. If you survive this place, I'll find you. The pup will be needing me. Count on it.
Oh, and ask Will how we met. I've loosened his tongue. It's real cracker of a tale. Ta-ta.
Okay, with that out of the way, we're going to turn and head back toward the south. You want to go through the little hallway here and then immediately turn toward the left as soon as you get out into the open area. And then go over by this neural apparatus, but don't use it just yet. Instead, we're going to save the game because we have a somewhat difficult fight right ahead of us. Now let's use that neural apparatus.
Your tadpole forms a telepathic connection with the device, and a chorus of static energy fills your mind. Every mind flayer in the room calls out hungrily from its pod, seeking release and sustenance. But there are others in the pods, those not yet infected, not yet illithid, terrified, desperate to escape. The device is open to your tadpole's command, to your authority.
Gate machinery. Cold as the sea of night. Alien as time to the astral plane. Avert your eyes. Close your mind.
It's risky, but we're going to choose release. We're surrounded by a lot of enemies. Most of them are pretty weak. They're just the little intellect devourers. However, we are going to focus on the mind flayer enemies around us. These things are pretty nasty. They can stun us, they can charm us, they can even extract our brains and do tons of damage to us. So if you get charmed, you won't be able to attack the same opponent on the same turn, but you can attack a different opponent. So I'm charmed against that enemy. Now let's just go ahead and attack a different one that we can see. Your primary targets should definitely be the mind flayers. They are way more dangerous than what those intellect devourers are. Plus, you have some allies on your side like Zevlor and a few other characters. They will do the work of trying to eliminate a lot of those intellect devourers for you, so don't worry about them. Focus on those mind flayers because they pose a significantly higher threat. A couple things to keep in mind is that this is really the main fight down here that we have to do. There is a way to get a long rest for free down here, so I'll be showing you that in just a little bit. So you can kind of go crazy a little bit using spells and everything because there's just a mini fight after this one that you don't have to worry about too much. And then we're just going to go right to the boss fight. So not a whole lot that I have to say here other than Karlach is really good at throwing things, knocking enemies prone. The mind flayers do take significant damage from throwing weapons at them, so use that to great effect and just kind of go crazy with your other skills and abilities as well, because we can just replenish them shortly after this fight is done. So I'm just going to kind of let the fight play out from here so you can see what it looks like, and then we're going to pick up right after that where we have Zevlor getting into a cutscene conversation with us. So enjoy the fight, and I'll see you in a few minutes.
This is gonna feel good.
Hells. I didn't think I was going to make it. Thank you. I owe you an explanation. Much more than that. But first, the others, the ambush. Tell me they survived?
They found refuge, but what the hell's happened out there, Zevlor?
You've heard some.
Now, if you're like me, this conversation may be interrupted at some point. I think that's okay, though. The different times that I played through the section, it always happened where we got interrupted, and Zevlor began a fight with the enemies, but it still completes the Find Zevlor quest, so I think that we're alright having him as an ally going into Act 3 a little bit later on. So you can see these little intellect devourers, they do run around and kind of cause a problem for you. We can go ahead and just eliminate them though, and then we can move on from here. Make sure that you go through and you pick up all the stuff around this area, because if you threw a lot of weapons trying to kill those mind flayers, you want to pick them up before you keep going. That last big fight gave us enough experience for everyone to level up, so let's go ahead and walk through our choices for getting to level 9. As a level 4 monk, we get a new feat available to us. I'm going to choose the sharpshooter feat. Our range attacks do not receive penalties from high ground rules, and we get a -5 penalty to our attack roll, but we get an additional 10 damage to our damage roll. Now we have Lae'zel, who's going to be a level 9 fighter for us. She does get some more health as well as the Indomitable ability, so that when we're going to fail a saving throw, we can roll again and use the new result. That might just come in handy a little bit later on. Nothing else we need to choose for her though, so let's lock that in. This brings us to Gale, our level 9 wizard. We have increased health as well as a new level 4 and level 5 spell slot. We get 2 new spells. I'll take Odaluke's Resilient Sphere. We can enclose a target in a sphere of shimmering force, blocking all incoming damage and spell effects. The sphere reduces the target's movement speed by half and also prevents it from casting spells or dealing damage for 3 turns. This is a good defensive option if you want to keep someone alive. Also, we get greater invisibility just so that we can turn a creature invisible, and we can do some nice stealthy things with that. So let's lock those things in, and then we're going to set up our spell book. We don't need Fog Cloud, I automatically put that in there, so instead what I'm going to do is to replace that. I'm going to equip Odaluke's Resilient Sphere. I don't need greater invisibility just yet, so we're going to leave that off for right now. Finally, we have Karlach. She is going to be a level 4 rogue, so we'll put the Barbarian aside for right now, and we're going to go level 4 rogue, giving us a new feat. For this feat, we're going to go with ability improvement, and we just want to increase her strength stat by 2. We're going to go from 18 all the way up to 20, and that will be great. Let's go ahead and lock that one in. We took some damage during that last fight, so I'm just going to use a short rest. It's not very important, but I'll do it anyway just to get rid of some of that red around the outside of the screen. And then we're going to continue on toward the north. We're going back by where we got Mizora, but this time we're going to go over toward the right side. We'll follow the path as we circle around toward the right, and you're going to see another big door up ahead of us. So let's open up the Fleshrot door, and then we'll go through here. Now, I want to just show off the power that we have with our new build. When you get into the barracks, you'll see that there's some purple crystals on the side here, and there's also going to be some enemies up ahead. Let's go ahead, quickly save the game, and we're going to take out these enemies very quickly and efficiently, and they're not going to stand a chance against the power that we have now. So let's start off by crouching down, and we're going to get just outside of their field of view, and we're going to initiate attack with the Dark Urge. Let's use a sneak attack range against one of the enemies here, and that will start the fight as well as make them all surprised, so we can do a lot of damage to them and they can't really do anything to us. We'll hit another enemy here with the next sneak attack range. It's an automatic critical hit, so that enemy's out. Let's switch on over to Lae'zel. We're going to get her very close, and then we can have her do her different attacks as well. We're just going to have her do the normal ranged attack, and that's going to do some good damage against Harry Henry straight ahead of us. So now Lae'zel has joined the fight. It's not quite her turn yet. Let's switch it on over to Gale, move forward a little bit with him, and then we're going to just use a magic missile. Let's stack some damage up against Harry Henry just like before, and that'll put him down to lower health. It's not quite his turn yet either, so we're going to go over to Karlach, sneak her forward. We can't use our enraged throw right away or use frenzy. We have to be in combat for that. So let's start off by throwing one of our weapons over there. We get the kill for that and we get 140 experience. And now if we wanted to, we can use our frenzy. We're just going to throw one thing over at Ironfinger here. That's going to do some good damage to him. And now we're going to use our frenzy. Following that up, we're going to use our enraged throw, which will also knock the enemy prone when we hit him. So let's go ahead and do that. The enemy is still going to be surprised, so they can't do anything on their turn, and then it's going to be our turn to move forward a little bit here, just getting into a better position. We can just hang out here for right now using an offhand range attack. We're going to hit Ironfinger, and that's going to take him out with another automatic critical hit. So we've taken out a few enemies already. We just got one more up ahead. Now, if you had something that pushed enemies back, you could potentially send them flying into the chasm below, which would be an automatic kill. I'm not going to do that, however, because I do want to get the little cutscene that comes after this, because it is specific to the Dark Urge. So we're attacking Cressa Bone Daughter over here, doing some good damage to her. Again, when she's surprised, she can't do anything to us, so we're just going to capitalize on this little moment of freedom that we have to attack over and over again. Using Action Surge, we can get a few more attacks in with Lae'zel, and this fight is very easy, gets us some good experience as well as a little bit of the backstory for the Dark Urge. So there's not much else to do here. We're just going to run Gale forward, and then we're going to go on to our next turn. We'll be able to take out this enemy pretty easily. So I'll just let it play out, and then the cutscene will play right after it.
Breathe deep and move. I don't need any attention right now.
Time to strike.
Aye, aye.
That's it.
She is but the hack doctor who half pieced you together after whatever caused your head to get in this mess. Someone else must have attacked you in the midst of whatever you were doing down here. This necromancer was a grunt in the scheme of the horrors enacted against you. That attacker is the source.
Try to remember the attack.
In the heart of all these membranes, there was a dagger awaiting you all along. But from who?
Now let's take a moment to go around the battlefield. We can loot all of the enemies that we defeated. There's also a cartilaginous chest, and we have a bunch of javelins and thrown weapons from Karlach. So take a moment to clean up after yourself, and then we're going to turn around and we're going to run straight toward the south. When you go back to the main area, keep on going straight ahead. There's going to be another door directly in front of you. So run over there, and then we're going to open up this flesh-wrought door to continue the path forward. Now what we're going to do is proceed directly to where the boss of Act 2 is. So we're going to go finish up Act 2. Let's run forward and then turn left immediately when you see that blue light. And then you can go through another flesh-wrought door. Continue the path around and you'll see a big elevator in front of you. We're not going to use the elevator just yet. Run past it and you'll see that there's another restoration pod over here. Once you use that, you will have essentially long rested and you're good to go. We've got all of our spell slots back and all of our health. Now let's run around and we're going to hop onto this elevator and we're going to go and talk to this neural apparatus. Now just wait for a few moments while the elevator goes all the way down to the bottom. Let's keep running forward to the east, and then we're going to have an autosave, which is pretty convenient because after we go through this next section, we'll be right at the boss fight. So let the game autosave, and then you're going to go forward, interacting with another flesh-rot door, and a cutscene will ensue right after that. I'm going to skip through most of the cutscene because it doesn't matter, but if you have Gale in your party, you get a special little cutscene, so I'll be showing you what that looks like. We have one final confirmation that we want to go through the door, so let's say enter. In this cutscene, we get introduced to the antagonists of Act 3, Orin and Gortash. We're going to skip through this really quick and get to the part where Gale comes in and we have dialogue options.
I must do as Mystra commands.
If you allow Gale to use his Netherese orb and destroy the brain, technically the game ends. You've successfully destroyed the Elder Brain, but that's not what we need to do in order to get the rest of the trophies. So instead we'll stop him by saying, Gale, you cannot do this. You can't condemn us to death.
What choice do I have? More than just a goddess counts with my courage. Whole worlds hang in the balance.
Trust me, Gale, we'll find another way. Then that's it for the dialogue options. We'll skip the rest of that, and we're going to go to where we can control our characters again, and this is right before the boss fight begins. This fight can be exceedingly difficult if you do not have the right strategy. In fact, almost every major decision that I've made up until this point in the game has been with this moment in mind because I wanted to make sure that we had the easiest time possible coming into this point. So what we're going to do is, number one, save the game, and then crouch down. We're going to go forward close to where the enemy can see. Be careful because they are patrolling around, so that field of view changes a little bit. But we'll get everyone as close to that red spot on the ground as possible without being seen. Make sure you split the Dark Urge off from the other party members, and then you want to use his ability called Shrouded in Shadow to turn yourself invisible. The invisibility lasts for only 12 seconds, so you have to hurry. Run toward the southeast and then climb up the arterial mesh so that you'll be standing next to Dame Aelin when your invisibility runs out when you're spotted by Ketheric and the cutscene begins.
He's pretty long-winded, so I'm just going to skip to the part where we actually have to make a dialogue choice.
Sometimes you get the option to have him not fight you and go immediately into phase 2 of the fight. Do not do that because that will make things much harder for you. You actually want to fight Ketheric and hold off on phase 2 for as long as possible. So instead we're going to say, "And what is my place, Ketheric?" He'll talk to you for over a minute and then he'll give you the option to just say, "Enough talk, let's finish this."
With pleasure.
And now the fight truly begins. You'll notice that there's a bunch of these intellect devourers who will probably come up and start attacking you. You'll just have to endure this most likely if you get a bad roll. So they all came up. Luckily I got one miss so I didn't take too much damage. But now I'm going to use my turn to help Dame Aelin. Just like if she was a companion on the ground, we'll choose the help command and pick her up so now she joins the fight with us. As far as the other party members go, we don't want to attack Ketheric right at the beginning. Instead, you want to focus your attention on this Mind Flayer who's hiding up into the right side. So run Karlach down along the right side wall. We're going to Frenzy, and that will allow us to use our Enrage throw. If you're in this position, you should be able to throw your weapons up high, and that will be enough to do a lot of damage to this Mind Flayer, maybe even killing it outright if you hit all three. So I knocked him prone with that enraging throw, and now I'm going to throw another javelin up top here. I'm doing lots of damage every time I attack, but I do miss that one. It's unfortunate. If you happen to hit all three, you'll probably kill it outright, but instead I just get 2 to hit, which is going to be good enough for right now. The Dark Urge already used his normal action by picking up Dame Aelin, so I can't attack that way, but I can use Flurry of Blows, and I get pretty lucky, and I hit a critical hit here, and that's enough to take down that Intellect Devourer, turning me invisible and allowing me to run away. Dame Aelin will pick up the kills on the other enemies on her turn. Now I'm going to run Lae'zel a little bit lower down toward where Karlach is, and I can use my normal range attack to do a little bit of damage. The odds to hit this Mind Flayer is actually pretty low. I only get a 30% chance, but I do actually get the attack here. It's not super necessary, but it is pretty handy. I don't need to attack the Mind Flayer again because its health is so low that Gale will be able to kill it on his next turn by hitting it with just one magic missile and lowering its health below 16. So I'll use my second attack just to attack Ketheric over here. I'm not going to use Action Surge or anything because I want to save that for later on in the fight. Now I'm going to move Gale down. I'll be able to use just a normal level 1 magic missile to do enough damage to lower that Mind Flayer down below 16 health. So it's guaranteed to hit. I'll bring him down from 19 health to 0 by using Call the Weak. And then we're going to throw the rest of those magic missiles into Ketheric for some guaranteed damage. So that Mind Flayer is down, which is perfect because you do not want it in the fight even for one full turn. You do not want it to attack at all. Ketheric likes to summon in other enemies as well as cast deadly orders on someone. What that does is it causes all of the other enemies to focus their attacks on the person with deadly orders. So that's a little bit unfortunate for us, but we can endure it. You'll see that Dame Aelin can kill a lot of the enemies very quickly, and then it's up to the Necromites to attack whoever has deadly orders on them. I'm not going to use any of the counter spells because I want to save those spell slots, and although it is damage coming in, we can endure it with Lae'zel. It was pretty good that it was on her because she's got quite a bit of health already. If it was someone like Gale, I might want to counterspell one of those if possible. So now that all these Intellect Devourers are gone, thanks to Dame Aelin, it's going to be Gale's turn. I want to run him over toward the side with the Necromites on it, and then I'm going to have him use Wall of Fire. I can draw a nice line right through all of those enemies, and what that's going to do is cause some initial damage this turn, and then as soon as those Necromites get their turn, they're all going to be killed by the residual fire that they're standing in. So it's a great way to simply kill 4 Necromites very quickly. Then I'm going to pass it on over to the Dark Urge. I really can't do anything with him right now. I can get him a little bit closer, but I can't jump up high for the advantage. I'm just going to bring him right to the other side of Dame Aelin, and then he'll be in striking distance of the main boss when Phase 2 begins. I can't hit Ketheric where he is right now, so I'm not even going to worry about that so much. You can see he's out of range. I'm just going to pass it on over to Lae'zel to continue the attack. I have a very low chance of hitting him with a range attack, so instead I'm going to use her turn to take out this skeletal invoker, which is incubating an undead enemy. So with that out of the way, then I can look at, well, what do I want to do to try to mess with Ketheric? If I wanted to use like a disarming strike, that might be good. You can actually get him to drop his weapon, so I'm going to jump Lae'zel up nearby to where he is. I don't want to be within striking distance of him. I do want to be a little bit further away so that he can't just straight up attack me on his turn. So we like to use range attacks when fighting Ketheric. If you want to try to use disarming strike, the nice thing about that is if it misses, it doesn't count against you. You don't use up any of those superiority dice when the attack misses. I hopped Karlach up close to him, and then I'm going to use Enraged Throw to be able to knock him prone. It's a bit of a disadvantage when you're this close to him, however, I still get it to hit. He goes prone, so now I can run away without having one of those attacks of opportunity come at me. So now we're kind of on opposite ends of the platform. I can continue attacking. If you use a throw, the odds to hit are much better than if you try to use a ranged attack. So I have a 65% chance to hit with a throw, but I only have a 30% chance to hit when I try to attack him with a normal range attack. So always use throws if you're going to be attacking him like this, because the odds are going to be way better. Throwing things really won't be your main source of damage against Ketheric, but it's better than nothing and it has a better chance to hit. Now with Lae'zel, I didn't use my secondary attack, so I'm just going to try to hit him with his range attack to do a little more damage. It missed, that's okay though. Not going to use Action Surge or anything, I'm just going to run away so that she's not right next to him. Let's end Lae'zel's turn and then make sure that Karlach can't do any more actions. We'll pass her turn. Ketheric stands up but doesn't do anything, and then Dame Aelin is going to dash over toward the main platform. And then it's going to be the Necromite's turn, and you'll see that they're going to blow up in that wall of fire up above, giving us 300 experience. Now it's the Dark Urge's turn. I'm just going to have him run over a little bit closer onto the main platform here. It's maybe not that necessary to do that. In fact, I probably shouldn't have done this, but that's okay. We're just going to kind of move on from here. I can turn off my sharpshooter ability just to raise my odds of hitting, and then I can try to attack with a piercing shot just to inflict some gaping wounds on him. Still not a great chance to hit, but I did get a little bit lucky and got that critical hit. I pass the turn over to Lae'zel now, and instead of attacking right away, what I think I'm going to do is to give it over to Karlach so that she can use her Enrage throw and try to knock him prone once again. So let's go ahead and give that a try. If you get it to hit, it's guaranteed to knock him prone, which is good for us. It really limits his ability to run around because it uses a ton of his movement speed to try to stand up, and then he won't be able to get close enough to really attack our other party members. So he's on the ground now. Let's continue our assault just by throwing stuff at him. Honestly, Ketheric is not that difficult. The main thing is just to keep your distance from him. He might do some annoying things like frighten you or cause some more enemies to spawn in, but those little skeletal invulkers are very easy to get rid of. You don't have to worry about that. It's essentially a wasted turn for him to do that. So you kind of want him to do that instead of attacking you, and by keeping your distance, you'll make sure he doesn't run up and start smacking you in the face. Keep hitting him with all of those enraged throws so that you can keep knocking him prone, and that will eat up all of his movement speed and keep you a lot safer. Just keep attacking him with those ranged attacks as best as you can. You won't have a good chance of hitting him. In fact, you might miss a whole lot, but that's okay. He doesn't pose much of a threat to us, and we just have to slowly whittle him down. The main thing to keep in mind, however, is that you want to make sure that when you get his health all the way down, you want to have as many of your actions available that turn as possible, because when phase 2 of the fight picks up, it'll pick up exactly where the end of phase 1 began. So you want to make sure that you have as many actions as possible to start hitting the Acolyte of Myrkul when it spawns in phase 2 right away. Ketheric can use Dreadful Aspect to try to frighten everyone nearby. It's not the worst thing in the world, it just means that we can't run and our attacks are a little bit worse, but we're fighting him at a distance anyway, so we don't really have to move. I'm just going to attack this Necromite a little bit, try to lower its health as much as possible with the Dark Urge. These Necromites go down pretty easily, although they have some bonus health. They also are only level 3, so we can do some good damage against them. Now what I'm going to do is use Lae'zel just to attack the Necromite one more time and finish him off, and then we'll take a shot at Ketheric. Just keep trying to lower his health little by little. Unfortunately, that's another big miss, so I'll turn it over to Gale. He has his magic missiles, which are guaranteed to hit, so he is a very reliable source of damage if you want to use him. I'll save that for just a moment, though, while I hit him with an Enrage throw, knocking him prone with Karlach, and then I can just throw some more things at him. He's getting pretty low on health at this point, but again, we don't want to get it all the way down to 0 while we have no actions remaining. So we've got to be a little bit cautious, making sure that we're not going too crazy with the damage. It's better to let him have another turn than to finish him off while we're not prepared to go into phase 2. The only outlier here is Dame Aelin, because you don't really know what she's going to do. She has the potential to do outrageous damage against him, and there's nothing that we can do about that. So I do get pretty lucky with this, however, because when Dame Aelin has her turn, she's going to fly at him and will actually miss her attacks, which is actually really good for me, because I can basically then begin the next turn with almost all of my actions remaining. So here you can see he'll try to incubate some death, get another enemy up here that I don't have to worry about too much, and then he'll dash over toward Gale, but can't do anything to him. Dame Aelin flies over and tries to attack him, but she misses spectacularly twice, and like I said, that's actually pretty good. So now it's going to be the Dark Urge's turn. I'm going to have him attack Ketheric, and that will be enough to take him down, meaning that I have almost all my actions remaining going into phase 2 of the fight. There's a long cutscene that plays out, but no dialogue options. I'll skip that, and we're going to head straight into phase 2 of the fight. So here you can see we have the Apostle of Myrkul, 390 health with legendary resistance against incapacitation. If you're doing well so far in the fight, please make a save at this point, because because although the strategy that I'll show you does work really well, there's always a chance that certain attacks could miss, and that could be a big problem for you. The very first thing that we want to do is to go to Gale, who has some Illithid powers. Namely, he has Perilous Stakes. I talked about this earlier, but you want to cast that on him. While he'll be able to heal when he attacks, he's also vulnerable to all damage, meaning he will take 2 times damage from all attacks coming his way. It's got a 70% chance to hit, so that's definitely worth it. If you miss this, you'll want to load up that previous save. But I did get it to hit, and so now he's really in trouble because all of our attacks will do double damage to him, and we can basically out-damage all of his healing that he might get when he attacks us. Let's switch it over to Lae'zel. I'm going to turn off the Great Weapon Master All-In ability so I have better accuracy. Then I'm going to use Hunter's Mark on him so that I can get additional piercing damage whenever I hit him with my weapon attacks. And I'm going to hit him with a lot of weapon attacks because I'm going to use Disarming Attack Melee on him a couple times. So let's hit him with that, trying to see if we can knock that giant scythe out of his hands. It is possible to do it, but it is a little bit unlikely. So hopefully luck is on your side. If you can get him to drop that, it's very easy to finish the fight with taking minimal damage from him. So we're hitting him with 2 of those Disarming Attack Melees and then Action Surging and doing 2 more. Hopefully you get them all to hit and you'll be able to reduce his health by over 100 after hitting him with all of those attacks. I really don't want Gale to be too close to the other characters because that scythe will cleave through all of them and probably kill him, so I'm going to Misty Step to the far corner of the other side of the platform, getting me out of that bone-chilled area and allowing me to still attack from a distance without too much trouble or at risk of being attacked. Using Karlach, I'm going to start throwing things at him like this caustic ball, but it can do some good acid damage to him, and even though he has high defense, it can sometimes lower his armor class, making him even easier to hit. Now you'll see that he also has the ability to use Myrkul's Call and bring those necromites to him to heal. We do not want him to be able to do that, so what we're going to do is make sure that you kill any nearby necromites so that they can't run over and heal him up, because it does quite a bit of healing, like 40 or more health. With all the necromites gone, now he can't heal. Let's continue our attack by using Concussive Smash. This has the potential to inflict the Dazed condition. The Apostle Myrkul is actually susceptible to lots of status effects. You can inflict the Blind condition just by being close and having the Blood of Lathander equipped, and you can also get him to be silenced by throwing the Brilliant Retort at him. You can see that if he is able to attack and hit you, he can do a lot of damage. He downed the Dark Urge with 1 attack, but Dame Aylin gets her revenge by absolutely going crazy on him, and now he's down to just 146 health, and we'll be able to finish that off this turn. So we're going to start by hitting him with a couple more of those disarming attacks with Lae'zel. We're still trying to get him to drop that scythe. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it's worth doing anyway because you can still do tons of damage to him like that. So then we're going to follow that up with the Pommel Strike just to get some extra damage in. If you go over to Gale, you've got a couple options. He does have kind of low health, but maybe not enough to get it low enough so that Call the Weak will activate. Even with our strongest magic missile, it's not going to happen. We could exploit his weakness to fire by using Wall of Fire or Fireball, but instead what I'm going to do is just go over to Karlach, and she will be the one to actually get rid of the rest of his health. I'm going to hit him with a Frenzied Strike. With that Blood of Lathander doing radiant damage, it does a lot of damage to him every time we attack. We can finish him off with just a couple main hand attacks. I get an unnecessary critical hit, so he is at very low health. If you didn't get that and he still has low health, then Gale should be enough just to finish him off with the magic missile. So let's finish the fight and we'll get a long cut scene and we can rejoice as we watch him burn. There are no dialogue options for the rest of this cutscene, so I'm going to skip to the end when we control our characters. Let's go and pick the Dark Urge up off the ground. In the meantime, we'll get an inspiration point for Lae'zel called Soldier, one for the Ages, along with 30 experience points. And the Dark Urge gets an inspiration point called Haunted One, lesser of the 3, for defeating Ketheric, and he gets 135 experience for doing that. Let's go around the battlefield and collect all of the weapons that we threw. If you climb up to where Dame Aelin was, you should be able to jump up higher up to where the Mindflayer was, and we can search around here to grab any of the weapons that we threw. So let's pick up these javelins. You can also look at what the Mindflayer is holding. He doesn't have a whole lot except for this Pegasus feather on my game. And then we can hop back down, and then we can just go around the battlefield collecting all of the loot, all of the weapons that we threw, everything like that. And then I'm going to skip ahead to where we actually loot Ketheric's body. There are a few dialogue options that are necessary to advance the story. There's more that you can choose if you want to really dig into more of the lore and everything, so feel free to do that if you want to. I'm going to skip ahead and show the ones that are necessary for you to say just to complete this section. What are these stones? Do you know who our enemies are? Continue. What do we do now? We get Ketheric's Netherstone as well as the ability to loot the rest of his body. He's got some really good stuff. It's also very heavy, so be careful about who picks it up. You might have to transfer some things around just so that you're not encumbered or heavily encumbered. So grab everything that you can grab from him, including his very good armor, and then we're going to continue on from here. Before we go through that portal like the game wants us to, we're actually going to go back to the elevator and ride it up to the upper level so that we can use that restoration pod and get a free long rest instead of having to use supplies for that. So use the neural apparatus, go up the stairs, you'll find that blue restoration pod just around the corner, and then you can head back down. I just brought it up to 4 times speed for you so you didn't have to watch me do that very slowly. Now we're going to run back right to where we fought Ketheric. We'll climb up the arterial mesh up onto the upper platform, and then we can run over and use the swirling blue vortex called the portal to the surface, and that will take us back out and we'll get a cutscene with Karlach, who is very angry at Gortash, and we've got to talk her through this a little bit. So there's a couple dialogue options to choose here, and because we are romancing her, we'll choose the nice options like we'll find out when we get to Baldur's Gate. We'll do it together, whatever it takes. After that, we're going to then speak with Gale really quick just to get rid of his exclamation mark. Gale is really interested in learning more about the crown that can control the Elder Brain. There's a certain place in Act 3 where we can do that, so we're just going to humor Gale along the way here and agree to go with him to learn more about it when we get into Act 3. So let's skip now to the end of the cutscene and keep going. Take a few steps closer to Dame Aelin and you'll automatically be put into a cutscene with her and Isabel. All we really want to do here is to allow them to come back to our camp, and that can advance Shadowheart's questline a little bit more. So I'm going to skip to the end of this one too. Our next stop is to talk to Quartermaster Talli. Just run toward the north, and if you look at the minimap, you'll see the little shopkeeper icon, and we can talk to her. The main thing that we want to look for is the arrows of dragon slaying. They come in very handy later on, so look around. If you can't find any of them, then all you have to do is to take a long rest or a partial rest, and that will be enough to change over what the merchants have in their inventory. So let's go ahead and do that right now. We can also advance Shadowheart's questline just by heading back to camp. Let's use the long rest option just to head back to camp, and then it will be nighttime. If you look at the minimap, there should be a yellow exclamation mark. Let's go and talk to Dame Aelin where that exclamation mark is.
What do you know?
Dame Aelin and Shadowheart will talk about Shadowheart's past. There's just a couple dialogue options that we want to select as we go through here. Number 1, when she wants you to be able to see what she's seeing, say, open your mind to that sensation. We'll then agree to help save her parents by saying, I'll help. Finally, Dame Aelin will show Shadowheart the spear that she threw, only it's reborn. We're going to choose to observe silently. And then the cutscene will just have a few more pieces of dialogue that we can just skip through quickly. Alright, Will also has an exclamation mark over his head, so we're just going to go talk to him real quick. There's nothing important that we need to discuss with him. In fact, once we start the conversation, we can pretty much just go straight down to the leave option, and then that will be done.
Now let's go to bed, and we're going to do just a partial rest without using any camp supplies because we don't need them, and then we're going to have Quartermaster Talli update her inventory. So once we're ready to go, then we're just going to go ahead and leave camp and go right back where we were inside the Moonrise Towers, right next to where Quartermaster Talli is. Let's go and talk to her, and we'll see that her inventory is in fact updated, and now she does have those arrows of dragon slaying. So we'll find those. They are purple. It makes it pretty easy to find. We can go ahead and purchase one of those from her, and then we can do this as many times as we want to. We can just keep doing partial rests over and over and farm some of those. I would recommend you do it a couple times, but there are places in Act 3 where you can also get those arrows. We will definitely want them. They make future fights against very dangerous dragons significantly easier. So go through, sell off all the old stuff that you don't really need anymore, any of the valuables, and then we're going to keep going from here, and we're going to be leaving Act 2 and moving into Act 3. As you head north up the stairs and outside of the towers, you'll get a little bit of a cutscene with the Dream Visitor. There's only a couple dialogue options that we have to choose here, so I'll walk you through those. Just say, I already have allies. Then say, I will seek more allies in the city. Now we can be in our way. We're not out of danger just yet. As you continue along the path toward the north, be careful about the glowing puddles on the ground. They can still damage you, so run around those and then keep going outside of the Moonrise Towers area past the waypoint. We'll continue going toward the north, and you want to stick over toward the left side a little bit. So you can go up the left side stairs and keep going north from this point. You'll run around these trees over toward the left, just kind of go diagonally in this direction. And then when you get past the wagons and everything, you can turn a little bit further toward the left, so you're going more straight west. Be careful as you run ahead because we're about to get ambushed by some Githyankis. If you look at the mini-map in the upper right-hand corner, there's going to be a green square. Right when you get to the end of that square, stop. And then what you want to do is to save the game, because if you go any further forward, you're probably going to get into a fight with those Githyankis, and it's not going to be good for you. So we're going to save the game and then have everyone crouch down to hide. And then we're going to start walking over toward the left-hand side. We're going to sneak your way up around toward the left. There's a ramp that will take you a little bit further toward the west as you go up to the upper level. And then when you get close to the top there, now we're going to switch control over to Gale so that he is the one that we're controlling. If you get too close to the stairs, you'll be spotted, which isn't good. You could potentially start that wall of fire early before the combat begins, and all the enemies will be caught in it along the top here. It doesn't really matter though, because Gale does get to go first here, luckily for me. And what I'm going to do is just get him kind of in position here to cast that wall of fire all along the top, and we're going to burn the enemies and just create a nice spot where all of the enemies can be lit on fire if they get too close to this thing. A lot of the enemies down below will also stupidly jump up straight into the fire, and they will get burned from it. So we're just going to set up our flames right along the top here, doing tons of damage to them, and also setting ourselves up for some residual damage in the future. Now that that's done, we have our other party members who are still outside of combat, which is really nice. We can go ahead and use the Dark Urge using a sneak attack, and we can attack the enemies from advantage here. We're a little out of range to hit the enemy all the way in the back, so if you want to, you can sneak forward a little bit and then try to aim at the one in the back. You can do some damage to him and potentially get them low enough so that Gale's second turn, he could just use a magic missile and take them out with the Call the Weak Illithid power, or you can just take out the raider and make sure that he's dead so that he doesn't get a chance to attack. Now let's take Karlach. We're going to move her forward a little bit, and then she'll be able to throw something toward the enemy, and that will put her into combat. We can then follow that up just by using a Frenzy and then an Enraged throw. So that's going to be very good for us to not only knock enemies down, but also to do lots of damage to them. They do take pretty significant damage from these throws, so you might be able to finish off another enemy or two just by throwing things at them.
So we're going to hit this enemy over here. He's going to be out of the fight, and now we can use our enraged throw to throw it at the nearby enemy. This is a Chirai, so we'll hit them, and then that will knock them prone. They're going to be sitting right in that fire to take some additional damage their next turn. As Lae'zel, we can move forward, and we're going to get as close as we can to the enemy as well. So walking through the fire will incur damage and put you into the fight. That's okay though, we're close enough, and we can run forward and we can use a disarming attack to try to knock that weapon out of their hand. Thanks to their legendary resistance, it makes it more difficult to knock that weapon out of their hand because the legendary resistance will save them 3 times. I actually hit them 2 times. I missed the 3rd time, but I hit the 4th time, and that will be enough to break that legendary resistance. So if I were to hit them again, then there's a good chance that I could actually knock it out of their hand. With that legendary resistance out of the way, she no longer has that plus 10 bonus to her throwing saves, so that makes her even more vulnerable to us. We can't really do anything with Gale, so we'll skip that, and then with the Dark Urge, we can just use our offhand range attack to do a little bit more damage to her. She's sitting in the fire, so as soon as it's her turn, then she's going to stand up, take a little bit of damage. She moves away from Lae'zel, which will only cause Lae'zel to attack her as an opportunity attack, doing some more damage, and then she hit Gale with a Eldritch Blast. Now you'll see that the reaction pops up, allowing me to charm her. It wasn't really necessary for me to use that Illithid power at this point, because charm just makes it so that she won't attack me again this turn, but she's not going to do that anyway, so I don't have to use the reaction. I can just save it for later on. The Githyankis down below aren't very smart. They'll jump up right into the fire and take a lot of damage here. So they're on their way up. I could potentially counterspell it, but I'm going to use Psionic Backlash when they cast that jump ability, and then they're going to hop right up here next to us. It's Gale's turn, and while I could just attack right now, I think I'm going to switch it over to Lae'zel. I really want to focus down this Chirai just because she is very dangerous. What I could do, however, is bring her down into range of that Call the Weak ability from Gale, and I would just be able to then use Magic Missile to guarantee finish her off. But instead, I'm just going to try to take her out using a combination of more normal attacks. I go for the offhand ranged attack. Unfortunately, that missed, so I'll follow that up by just using one of the normal ranged attacks, and that should be enough to finish it off if it hits. And sure enough, down she goes. We don't have to worry about her anymore. Now it's just 2 of the weaker enemies that we have to deal with. So I'm just going to have the Dark Urge retreat a little bit just to get him out of the way while he's invisible, and then I can move it over to Gale, who can start attacking. I'm going to use a level 5 magic missile that will allow me to maintain my concentration on the wall of fire that's still burning on the ground, and we can do lots of damage to an enemy just by pelting them with all of those magic missile projectiles. So they lost a significant amount of health by just that one attack. A lot of my character's actions have already been used, so I can't do a whole lot more for the rest of this turn, except for Karlach. She's still ready to fight, so I'm going to use my Frenzied Strike just to bait out the Ready to Parry ability. So that now has been used up. They can't react anymore, so what I want to do is just to create a little distance. They can't use an attack of opportunity because they've already reacted, and now we can use an Enraged Throw just to do lots of damage and to knock them down. So let's hit this enemy, knocking them down, and they're going to be severely injured. We can follow that up with just a normal throw, and that will be enough to take out this enemy. We've still got one more throw to go, so let's toss something over at the other enemy by Lae'zel. Unfortunately, that misses, so I don't get the high damage off of that one, but that's alright. The enemy tries to disarm me but misses. I can automatically counter that using Riposte. That's one of the Battlemaster abilities that we have, and the enemy is now severely hurt, and we just have to finish them off on the next turn. So they're looking for me, can't find me, and they've got nothing more to do. Let's finish them off by going over to Lae'zel. She can run forward and just start laying into this enemy with her melee attack. It misses the first attack thanks to Ready to Parry, and then the second attack brings them down to pretty low health. Now it's going to be Gale's turn. I can have him just use a Ray of Frost. If I use the Luck of the Far Realms Illithid power, I could automatically get a critical hit, which would probably kill it thanks to the Call the Weak ability. I'm going to save that though because I've got tons of actions and I don't really need to waste that Luck of the Far Realms here. So now it's just going to be up to the Dark Urge to use a sneak attack range from invisibility to finish off the enemy, gaining 200 experience for that last enemy, and we can now go around the battlefield collecting up all the things that we had thrown and also looting the bodies. The body of the Try does have some interesting loot, so I'm going to jump ahead to when I loot that body. Here's the body of the Try. If we loot it, we'll grab the Haraknir bracers as well as the Cyanic ward armor. So make sure you grab those two. That's the only really interesting stuff among all of this stuff. Now we just have to grab all of the things that we've thrown around the battlefield and we can keep going. Alright, once we're all done looting, we're going to continue along the path toward the west. We'll go past the road to Baldur's Gate waypoint, and then just continue running toward the northwest. You'll see a quest marker on the minimap. Just keep going that direction. Eventually you'll get to the door called To Baldur's Gate. It will give you a warning saying that we're going to advance to the next area. So we'll just make sure that we're ready to go, and then we'll be inside of Worm's Lookout after some long cutscene. Now what we want to do is to head down the nearby ladder. We're going to run south into the main part of camp. You can see the fire burning in the background. That's ultimately our destination, to get down to the campfire so we can choose to go to sleep. That will automatically advance the story. Unfortunately, we don't get to sleep peacefully because we're going to be interrupted by a fight. So we're going to go over here, choose to go to bed. We don't have to talk to anyone in camp if we don't want to. The narrator asks us what we want to do at the end of the game. We're not really bound to any of these decisions, but because we're the Dark Urge and because we're going for a very particular trophy, we can just go along with that for right now and say, I will succeed where the chosen will fail, I will dominate the world.
A thrill courses through you at the thought.
Now here's where we get ambushed by some Githyankis coming into our camp. They're a bunch of monks, and they're actually pretty powerful, and they can mess you up if given the opportunity. So instead what we want to do is to take them out. But the main objective is actually to get to the portal within the 3 turns that we're given. So we want to not only take out the enemies, but also make sure that at least one person gets up to that portal. I'm going to have Lae'zel go forward first, and she's going to start attacking the enemies nearby. This one looks like it's already weakened for some reason. There's no real point in using Disarming Strike against them because they're unarmed, so instead we're just going to use our main hand attack to try to do as much damage to them as possible. Unfortunately, monks are hard to hit, so I miss one. I hit the second attack. I'll use Action Surge just because I want to do more damage to them. I'll get a critical miss on the third attack, and the fourth attack does damage too. Now it's the Dark Urge's turn, so I'm just going to have him run forward, and then he can use his normal range attack with the follow-up offhand range attack just to do some more damage. But you'll see what these monks can do when it's their turn. They can attack you from a distance, they can beat you up close, they can do lots of things. Luckily for us though, with Lae'zel, if the enemy happens to miss, we can automatically get that riposte damage against them. And then when it's Karlach's and Gale's turn, we just want to continue our assault by throwing things at the enemy. They can actually take a lot of damage from the throws that Karlach has, and then if they get down to low health, we can just finish them off pretty easily with Gale, hitting them with his Call the Weak ability activating, and that should be enough to take out the enemies. The goal is, of course, to get to that portal first. Killing these enemies is secondary to that, but it is possible if you can deal out enough damage to actually accomplish both of those things. We're going to set up all of these enemies so that they'll be easy kills for Gale. Let's start by using an enraged throw on the enemy over here. That's going to knock him prone and do lots of damage to him. So he's pretty vulnerable now. And now we get to use another one of our throws to target the enemies. We've got one at 20 health, one at 15, and this one in the back with 69. So we'll hit him, and he's going to be pretty weak now. We'll hit them one more time, and we're going to bring him down to within killing range for Gale. So we now have 3 enemies ripe for the kill. We're going to move Karlach up a little bit just so that she's a little bit closer to the enemy without getting an opportunity attack coming toward us. Now with Gale, we just have to use one of our normal magic missiles. We're going to click on this enemy, that enemy, and the last enemy, and when all of the missiles go out, they're all going to be dead, giving us 600 experience in total. Now we can just continue running forward. We don't want to get Gale very close to the enemy, however, because we don't want him to take any attacks. He's got the lowest armor class of all of us. That portal spawned a new enemy, and he has crazy good movement speed as a monk, so he will run right up and knock Gale down. That's okay though, we can take him out very easily just by throwing stuff at him with Karlach. So one throw followed up by another throw will be enough to take him down. And then what we want to do is before we go through that portal, we need to clean up after ourselves. So we should have enough movement speed right around here to pick up all the things that we've thrown in this area. So after you clean up after yourself, then what we want to do is to move over to Lae'zel so that she can jump up onto that upper platform, and then she just has to run into the portal, and that will complete this sequence for us. Once you go through the portal, then there'll be a little bit of a cutscene. We can just skip past that, and we're on the astral plane. What we want to do is to hop down to the lower section. There's going to be 2 monks on the section closest to us, and there's a lot of intellect devourers who are actually our allies. So let's work together to take out the couple of monks here. They're not very difficult. We've got our whole team ready to go. They just have to get within range to finish off the enemy. So there's no real strategy here other than just use the normal range attacks, throw stuff at them, and you should be okay. Because there's no big strategy here, I'm just going to put it into 2 times speed to get through this section a little bit quicker. Alright, there you go. That was super easy. We still have one of our frenzy charges or rage charges with Karlach, so you'll want to save one of those for the final part because it's probably more important for us with a lot more enemies that are a lot tougher. Just take a moment to go around, clean up everything after yourself, all the weapons that you've thrown, and then what we're going to do is to continue on the path toward the west. We're going to hop down to the lower section, and then we're going to keep on going toward the next big fight. Now once you jump down into the next section that looks kind of like a skull, then you'll be close to where the action is. Luckily you do get an autosave right there, so if something goes bad, you can just back it up to right before the fight. As you go forward, you do get a cutscene with the Emperor, and you're able to just make a couple dialogue options here. I'm just going to skip that though, because it really doesn't matter for what we're doing here. I'm just going to choose the nice options as we go along, just in case you want to follow the same path. We did romance the Emperor in the previous walkthrough, so you don't have to do anything special with that if you don't want to. You can just say basically whatever you want to at this point. But we're going to agree to help him, and then we're going to take out the enemies in this area. There are still a lot of intellect devourers helping us out, and we do get the Emperor to help us out too, but the enemies here are quite powerful, and being monks, they have a lot of tricks that we don't usually get to see, and you might be unprepared for. So we're going to kind of focus on the same strategy that we have been using, try to get enemies low on health, and then we can have Gale pick them off with magic missiles that never miss. So let's just put this into a quick speed again just to get through this, and then we'll be at the end of this battle in no time.
my little trick. I fancy their chances.
Alright, we're coming up on the end of the fight now. We want to keep spreading out the damage between the different enemies. So you'll see that some of them still have full health, but Karlach can take care of that pretty easily by herself with a couple enraged throws or normal throws. The goal is to get as many enemies as possible to be right around 16 health or below. That will allow Gale to step in, and then he will be able to take out like 3 different enemies in the same turn. So just spread the damage out. Do as much as you can to weaken the enemy to the lowest HP possible without actually killing them, and then Gale can swoop in with some magic missiles. We can spread those around and get a bunch of kills all at once. So I'll tag this guy, and then I'm going to look over here. He's got 9 health. I'll tag him. That guy's got a little bit more. The guy up here has low health, so I'll tag him, and then throw the rest on the enemy with the most health. And after doing that, we get 3 kills right off the bat, and then this enemy is very low on health as well. I can just use an offhand melee attack to try to do some more damage to him. Couldn't quite get him low enough. I got pretty close though, but it's nothing that our rogue, the Dark Urge, can't take care of. Let's go ahead and hit him, and then we can finish him off, and then that will end the fight for us. After the fight, we automatically get put into a cutscene with the Emperor and Orpheus. In general, we're just going to be nice to the Emperor and choose some good dialogue options with that. It just makes things go easier. At the end of the conversation, you'll have the choice whether to become Half-Illithid by accepting a new tadpole. We do want to choose that option so that we become Half-Illithid. It just provides lots of good bonuses for us, and we can use that to our advantage. So let's go ahead and just skip to the end of this conversation where we become Half-Illithid, and we can keep going from there. Just by becoming Half-Illithid, we gain the ability to fly, which provides us a significant advantage in mobility. We also can get some new abilities from the Illithid powers all around the outside of that brain map. And we can even convince our party members to become Half-Illithid as well. That's really good for Gale because not only can he gain new Illithid powers, which are very powerful, but also he will power up the Call the Weak Illithid power that he already has, making him even more deadly against enemies, even while they have more health than what they currently have as the threshold for that ability to kick in. We're going to spend just a minute running around collecting all of the gear that we threw. We've thrown a lot of daggers and spears, all kinds of javelins and things. So take a moment and go all over the place and grab everything. There is one piece of interesting gear that you can find on one of the Githyanki corpses. That would be the Boots of Uninhibited Kushigo. This is really good for a character who uses unarmed strikes like a monk. So go ahead and grab that. We're just going to finish it going around and cleaning up after ourselves, and then we're going to head on out of here. It looks like everything around here has been cleaned up pretty well, so we're all done with that. Now we want to get out of the astral plane. All we have to do is head on over to the portal nearby, and that is going to be the portal to the material plane. Let's go ahead and use that, and we'll be transported back to our other world. We're back at camp at Worm's Lookout, and what we want to do is go have a little chat with Gale to convince him to take on that partial Illithid form, and that way he will be much more lethal in combat and give us some nice advantages. So let's head on over toward the far side. You'll be able to see on the mini-map where his portrait is, so follow that around and then go and have a talk with him.
Whew, quite the rug pull, eh? A mind flayer manipulating us this whole time. Such creatures are not to be trusted as a general rule, though this one does appear to have had a significant hand in our survival up to this point. At best, an ally whose motivations remain shrouded in deceit. We should be wary of what such an alliance may cost us.
We've been given a rare gift, an Astral Touch tadpole with the power to grant you a new partial Illithid form.
I can only imagine what I could do were I to adopt the biology of a mind flayer. Certainly doesn't seem to have done you any harm. Or rather, you've not yet done me any harm. Still, there are undoubtedly risks to such a transformation.
Persuasion. You will wield this power well and with wisdom. There aren't many I'd trust with this. This gives us a skill check with an 18. We do have an advantage here, as well as our normal persuasion proficiency. I would definitely recommend saving the game, though, because you want this to be successful. So once they're all saved up, let's go ahead and roll the dice, and when we come out successful, we'll continue on from there.
If this is what the fates have offered to aid our cause, then who am I to refuse? I'll take your tadpole. Let's see what it has to offer.
Life pulses from within. The parasite's thoughts whisper at the edge of your mind. It wants to share itself with you. It wants to be let in.
Go on. Don't be afraid. It only wants to help you evolve.
Open your mind to it.
A coldness seeps through your veins as the tadpole awakens, its yearning almost unbearable. Your mind is a veritable feast. The tadpole's essence courses through you. Where it touches, your flesh, glands, organs contract and flood with pure thought. You feel different. Your body has never felt more connected. Your mind present in every flex of a joint or muscle.
Perhaps, once the others see what you can do, they will consider trying it for themselves.
After that cutscene, let's give control over to Gale so that we can go through his Illithid powers and learn a lot more. We've got 7 tadpoles at the ready. Let's go ahead and use them. We're going to go counterclockwise, starting in the bottom right. We gain the ability to use Black Hole. Now moving up, we can get the ability for Psionic Dominance. Keep going up, and we're going to learn Illithid Expertise. Continuing upward, we get Fracture Psyche. Now going to the left, we can get Displacer Beast Shape. Keep going around to grab Absorb Intellect. Now we can keep going down to grab Free Cast. We now have 24 Illithid powers learned, which basically means that if we can get an enemy down below 24 health with Gale, which should be pretty easy, then that enemy will instantly die thanks to Call the Weak. So Gale is very lethal in combat now, and he's got a lot of really cool abilities to help us out. Now what we're going to do is head back toward the main camp area. Eventually we want to do the long rest. We actually get a free long rest here, but first it looks like Lae'zel wants to talk. She's got that exclamation mark above her head. So let's have a chat with her real quick about Orpheus and Voss and all of them. Once we're done with that conversation, we'll choose to go to bed, and then we will be able to take a free long rest and get all of our health and spell slots back. And after some of those very long and drawn out fights, this is a good thing for us. Before you leave camp, if you look at the mini-map, you'll see that nearby there is one of those yellow exclamation marks. That's actually Shadowheart. Let's go talk to her. We actually want to talk to her a few different times. One of the times she'll want to talk about the Mind Flayer and all that stuff. So let's skip through that really fast, and then she'll want to talk about her hair. If you want to be nice, just tell her that you love it, or if it makes her feel better, then that's good. Whatever you want to do there, just go ahead and have a little chat with her a couple times, and then we'll be able to go ahead and leave camp, and we'll be outside and officially into Act 3. Alright, welcome to Act 3. I really appreciate you hanging in there with me. I know this was a long video. Trust me, it was a lot longer before it got edited down. I started with almost 5 hours worth of footage, and I narrowed it down to about an hour and 40 minutes. So thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a big like and comment down below. Also subscribe to stay up to date with the rest of the series as we complete Act 3, the rest of Tactician mode, and we also get the remaining trophies along the way. So I'll see you soon for part 22. Until then, thanks for watching and have a good day.